Good day, Junior Tuckies. Today I'm going to be doing exam preparation about phrases and clauses. I hope this lesson will remind you of what phrases and clauses really are. First of all, let's ask ourselves, what is a phrase? A phrase is a group of two or more words that contain an idea, but they cannot stand on their own. A phrase forms part of a clause. The sentence cannot stand on its own because it does not have a finite verb. To check if a sentence contains a finite verb, use the following rhyme. SNT, subject, number, or tense. If the sentence does not have a finite verb, then it is a phrase. We get two different types of phrases. The first type of phrase we get is adjectival, and the second phrase we get is adverbial. Let's first look at adjectival phrases. This group of words tells us more about the noun. Think of an adjective in parts of speech. It tells us more about the noun. Whereas an adjectival phrase is a group of words that will tell us more about our noun. They do not have a finite verb, so therefore this particular part of speech cannot stand on its own. Look for the following parts of speech to find an adjectival clause in a sentence. The first part of speech is a preposition. Here are a couple of examples. About, below, for, into, over, past, since, until, and the list goes on. You can also look for participles. Remember, a participle is a type of non-finite verb that ends in ing and acts as an adjective or a verb in the sentence. Let's look at some examples on the next slide. Adjectival phrases continued. Now, how can we check if a sentence has an adjectival phrase? Use SNT, subject, number, tense. If the group of words does not have a finite verb, it is a phrase. If the group tells us more about the noun, then the group of words is an adjectival phrase. Let's look at some examples. Number 1. The woman in the new car had an accident. Firstly, which part of speech should we be looking for when trying to identify an adjectival phrase? We need to look for a preposition or a participle. In is a preposition in the above sentence. Let's check if the group of words in the new car has a finite verb. Does it have a subject? No, there is nothing in the group of words in the new car that has a subject. Does it have a number? No. Does it have a tense? No. Therefore, in the new car is a phrase. Let's now check if this phrase is adjectival. Does it tell us more about the woman? Yes. So, the adjectival phrase in this sentence is the new car. Number 2. The businessman walking across the road dropped his laptop. Now, this sentence has a present participle, walking. Let's test if this group of words has a finite verb, walking across the road. Does this group of words have a subject? No. Does it have a number? No. Does it have a tense? Yes, but who or what does this tense relate to? We don't know. Therefore, walking across the road is a phrase. Now let's check if it's adjectival. Does it tell us more about the businessman, our noun in the sentence? Yes. So therefore, walking across the road is an adjectival phrase. Number 3. The woman with the red pants sat on the bench. This sentence has a preposition, with. Let's check if the group of words with red pants is a phrase. Does it have a subject? No. Does it have a number? No. Does it have a tense? No. Therefore, the phrase is with the red pants. Now let's check if it's adjectival. Does with the red pants tell us more about the woman? Yes, it does. So, with the red pants is an adjectival phrase. Let's try out some more examples on the next slide. Adjectival phrases continued. As with any rule in English, there are always exceptions. An adjectival phrase does not always begin with a preposition or participle. Let's look at these few examples. Number 4. She wore very expensive shoes. In the sentence, there is no preposition and there is no participle. So how do we know where the phrase is? Remember, a phrase cannot stand on its own because it does not contain a finite verb. What words in the sentence can be removed and the sentence will still make grammatical sense? We can think of our phrase as this. If we can remove a part of a sentence and the sentence still makes grammatical sense, that means the part of the sentence that we removed is a phrase. Let's look at number 4. She wore very expensive shoes. Very expensive can be taken out of the sentence and it still will make sense. She wore shoes. This is still a grammatically correct sentence and it contains a finite verb. If you'd like to test this, use SNT to find out. Now, is this phrase adjectival, very expensive? Very expensive tells us more about she. Therefore, very expensive is an adjectival phrase. Number 5. Faster than a speeding bullet, Superman saved the day. Now, this sentence does not contain a preposition or participle. What words can we remove from the sentence and will still make sense? Faster than a speeding bullet, Superman saved the day is a grammatically correct sentence. So if we remove faster than a speeding bullet, it means that faster than a speeding bullet is the phrase. Looking back, Superman saved the day is a grammatically correct sentence. It contains a finite verb. You can use the SNT rhyme to check this. So, faster than a speeding bullet is our phrase. Is it adjectival? Does it tell us more about Superman? Yes, it does. So therefore, faster than a speeding bullet is an adjectival phrase. Number 5. Frustrated, overworked, and underpaid employees picket for hours. Now this sentence does not have a preposition or a participle. What words in the sentence can we remove? Frustrated, overworked, and underpaid can be removed from the sentence and it will still make grammatical sense. Let's check. Employees picket for hours. That sentence does have a finite verb. You can use the SNT rhyme to check for this. So, is frustrated, overworked, and underpaid an adjectival phrase? Does it tell us more about the employees? Yes. So therefore, frustrated, overworked, and underpaid is the adjectival phrase. Let's move on to adverbial phrases. Once again, a phrase cannot stand on its own. Why? Because it does not contain a finite verb. This type of phrase tells us more about the verb, just like an adverb tells us more about our verb. You need to look for the following parts of speech in a sentence to find an adverbial phrase. Look for a conjunction or look for a comma. We get 4 different types of adverbial phrases. An adverbial phrase of time, where we ask the question, when. An adverbial phrase of place, where we ask the question, where. Number 3, an adverbial phrase of reason, where we ask the question, why. And number 4, an adverbial phrase of manner, where we ask the question, how. Let's look at some adverbial phrase examples. Number 1, at the beginning of the day, the teacher took register. Now there is no conjunction in the sentence, but there is a comma. Now we need to decide what part of the sentence is the adverbial phrase. Remember, you can use SNT to determine if a sentence has a finite verb. Let's break the sentence up. At the beginning of the day. Does this have a subject? No. Does this have a number? No. Does this have a tense? No. So, at the beginning of the day is our phrase. Now we need to determine, is it time, place, reason, or manner? Let's look at the questions we need to ask. When, where, how, and why? So, when did the teacher take register? At the beginning of the day. So, at the beginning of the day is an adverbial phrase of time. Number 2, I forgot my coat out in the rain. Out is a conjunction. So, out in the rain can also be removed from our sentence and it will still make grammatical sense. Remember, you can use the rhyme SNT to check where the finite verb will fall in either part of the sentence. So we know this is a phrase, but what type of phrase is it? Does it tell us more about I or forgot? It tells us more about where the coat was forgotten. Remember, we now know that the phrase is out in the rain. We need to ask the questions when, where, why, and how to determine whether it is time, place, reason, or manner. So where did I leave the coat? Out in the rain. So the adverbial phrase of place is out in the rain. Number 3, she went outside because it was hot. Because is a conjunction, so our phrase will be because it was hot. Remember, you can use SNT to check if this sentence contains a finite verb or not. Now we need to ask the questions: when, where, why, and how. Why did she go outside? Because it was hot. Therefore, the adverbial phrase of reason is because it was hot. Number 4, the actor impressed everyone with his abilities. With is a conjunction, so the phrase is with his abilities. Remember, you can use SNT to check if that sentence has a finite verb. Now we need to ask the questions: when, where, why, and how. How did the actor impress everyone? With his abilities. So the adverbial phrase of manner is with his abilities. Now, let's move on to clauses. Clauses are a group of words that can stand on its own. Why? Because it has a finite verb. There are 4 different types of clauses that I will cover. The independent clause, or another word for it, or another name for it, is called a main clause. The dependent clause, or a subordinate clause. An adjectival clause, and an adverbial clause. The independent or main clause expresses a main idea. Think of an independent woman, just like Beyonce. She can stand on her own. She doesn't need anyone else, just like our independent clauses. They can stand on its own because they have a finite verb. Look for the following parts of speech in a sentence to identify the independent or main clause. You can look for relative pronouns. Your 4 W's and 1 T is a way that I like to remember it. The who, whose, which, whom, and that. And you can also look for conjunctions. To be specific, you can look for coordinating conjunctions, where we use the rhyme fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. And you can also look for subordinating conjunctions, which are all of the conjunctions that do not fit into fanboys. Let's look at some examples on the next slide. Dependent or subordinate clauses. These clauses contain all the additional information. These clauses cannot stand on their own. It's like using a crutch to help you walk. We need the help of the independent or main clause to make a grammatically correct sentence. Why can a dependent or subordinate clause not stand on its own? It does not have a finite verb. You can use the rhyme SNT, subject, number, or tense to check if there is a finite verb, but you can also use this rhyme, subject, verb, clear, idea. Does the parts of the part of the sentence have a subject? Does it have a verb? And does it have a clear idea? We can also think of the dependents or subordinate clauses as the leftovers in the sentence. Let's look at a couple of examples. Remember, we are going to use the checklist SNT, subject number tense, to see which parts of the sentence the finite verb will fall into. Number 1, we saw the car which was burning. Which is a relative pronoun. So, which was burning might be our dependent or subordinate clause. Let's look at we saw the car. Let's use SNT to see if this part of the sentence contains a finite verb. Does the sentence have a subject? Yes, we. Does the sentence have a number? Yes, we is more than one, so therefore it is plural. Does this sentence have a tense? Yes. Therefore, the main or independent clause in this part of the sentence is we saw the car, and the dependent or subordinate part of the sentence is which was burning. Number 2, the toddler ate because he was hungry. Because is a conjunction. Let's test if the toddler ate is a main or independent clause. Does it have a subject? Yes, the toddler. Does it have a number? Yes, there is one toddler, so therefore it is singular. Does it have a tense? Yes. So we can determine the toddler ate is the main or independent clause, and because he was hungry is the subordinate or independent part of the sentence. Number 3, the dog that was cute got adopted. That is a relative pronoun. That marks off the dependent or subordinate parts of our sentence. Let's check if the dog got adopted is our main or independent clause. Does it have a subject? Yes, the dog. Does it have a number? Yes, there is one dog, so therefore it is singular. Does this part of the sentence have a tense? Yes. So, the dog got adopted is the main or independent clause, and that was cute is the dependent or the subordinate part of the sentence. Number 4, they walked in the park while it was lockdown. While is a conjunction which marks off where our dependent or subordinate clause will be. Let's test if they walked in the park is a main clause or an independent clause. Does it have a subject? Yes, they. Does it have a number? Yes, they is many, so therefore it is plural. Does it have a tense? Yes. So, they walked in the park is the main or independent clause, and while it was lockdown is the dependent or the subordinate clause. Number 5, the student who was sleeping in class never did her homework. Who is a relative pronoun, which will mark off our dependent or subordinate parts of the sentence. Let's check if the student who never did her homework is a main or independent clause. Does it have a subject? Yes, the student. Does it have a number? Yes, there is one student, so therefore it is singular. Does it have a tense? Yes. So the sentence, the student who never did her homework is the main or independent clause of the sentence. Who was sleeping in class is the dependent or subordinate clause. Number 6, he ran to the cafe. Now, this sentence is different. 2 does not fall into the category of conjunction or relative pronoun. But let's test it out. He ran could be a main or independent clause. Does it have a subject? Yes, he. Is there a number? Yes, he is singular. Does it have a tense? Yes. So although the sentence does not contain a relative pronoun or a conjunction, you can still use SNT to test if a clause is independent, main, or dependent and subordinate. So, he ran is the main or independent part of our sentence, and to the cafe is dependent or a subordinate clause. Adjectival clauses. Both types of clauses, main slash independent and dependent slash subordinate, can be adjectival. They tell us more about the noun. Look for relative pronouns when you are looking for an adjectival clause. The 4 W's, 1 T. Let's look at an example. Number 1. The man who owns the dog is a good person. Who is a relative pronoun. Does who owns the dog tell us more about the man? Yes. So, who owns the dog? Is it a phrase or it's a clause? Let's use SNT to check. Does it have a subject? Yes, the man. Does it have a number? Yes, there is one man, therefore it is singular. Does it have a tense? Who owns the dog? Yes, it does. So therefore, who owns the dog is an adjectival clause. Number 2. The dog that was eating his bone was not allowing anyone closer. That is a relative pronoun. Is that was eating his bone telling us more about the dog? Yes. So, that what eating his bone is the adjectival clause. Number 3. The mother who was strict never gave her child sweets. Who is a relative pronoun. Does who was strict tell us more about the mother? Yes. Now, who was strict? Is it a phrase or is it a clause? Use SNT to check. Who was strict is therefore our adjectival clause. Adverbial clauses. Adverbial clauses do the work of an adverb. Always look for conjunctions in a sentence. We get 4 different types. An adverbial clause of time, where we ask the question when. An adverbial clause of place, where we ask the question where. An adverbial clause of reason, where we ask the question why. And an adverbial clause of manner, where we ask the question how. Let's look at some examples. As the children crossed the road, a car suddenly stopped. As is a conjunction. Use SNT to determine if as the children crossed the road is a phrase or a clause. It is a dependent clause. Now, is it telling us more about how the car stopped or when did the car stop? We can ask the question, when did the car stop? As the children crossed the road. Therefore, as the children crossed the road is an adverbial clause of time. Number 2. The dog followed its owner everywhere he went. Everywhere is a conjunction. Is everywhere a dependent or an independent clause? It is a dependent clause. Now we need to ask ourselves, does it tell us more about the noun or the verb? Where did the dog follow its owner? Everywhere he went. Thus, everywhere he went is an adverbial clause of place. Number 3. Because he was an A student, her study methods were exceptional. Because is a conjunction. Is because she was an A student the independent or dependent clause? Use SNT to find out. Now, we need to ask the question, does it tell us more about the noun or the verb? We also need to ask our questions. Where, when, why? Why were her study methods exceptional? Because she was an A student. Thus, because she was an A student is an adverbial clause of reason. Number 4. As though it were yesterday, the lady reminisced about acting at the Globe Theatre. As though is a conjunction. Is as though it were yesterday telling us more about the lady or about how she reminisced? It tells us more about how she reminisced. So therefore, it is an adverbial clause. But we need to find out, is it reason, manner, time, or place? How did the lady reminisce? As though it were yesterday. So, as though it were yesterday is an adverbial clause of manner. I hope this gave you a quick freshening up of your knowledge about phrases and clauses. Next up is euphemistic language.